creator of the Rutledge Perspective podcast, and now I am the host of the Rutledge with all of you. And what we're going to do is talk about the foundational pieces, whether or not you're building a business or you're building a career. It all comes down to strategy and people. If you don't know where you're going, how do you know who needs to be on your team? So please join me, join in the conversation, catch the show both on the radio, on the app, and also on Facebook. And I will be on Tuesdays from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Thank you so much for listening. I look forward to seeing you there.
Good morning, y'all. I had to move Jerry's sign, y'all, so y'all can see my little peak.
Look like I purposely did.
Right. See, now come on, Jerry. Good morning, good Tuesday morning. Time to talk it out. I am fired up, y'all, this morning. I just have to tell you, I'm beyond fired up. Let's just be honest. I just am. And we're going to do our PSAs, and then we're going to talk today, and we're talking about character. We're talking about integrity. We're talking about truth. We're talking about how you show up. And I thought about my good friend Renee in Austin as I was coming in today, because I was devastated last night and then woke up this morning just hot. And that's why I'm, all put together today too, because my mama said on those days when you don't feel your best, you don't feel like showing up, you better do extra or you're going to look like you feel. So I even got my lashes on today. Y'all see that? So I'm telling you, we're gonna get real. Not real, because on this show we speak truth to power. On this show, we tell the truth. On this show, we challenge our perspectives, and that includes me challenging my own. So we're just gonna talk about that today. So before we're gonna get into the PSAs, because those are really important, even more so now, and that's going to drive some of this conversation we're gonna have later. So there are some places that are just starting their early voting. DC, Maryland, Michigan, South Carolina, your early voting started this week. There are some things I want you guys to really be cautious about in early voting. One, keep showing up. Almost 60 million people early voting. That's what I'm talking about, y'all. This is what happens when people don't do right. And when people are trying to take your vote, they're cheating. They're trying to suppress the vote. They're trying to find any kind of way to keep people from expressing their views. And what's worse is that they're doing it. We all know, speaking truth to power, we know why it's happening. We know which groups they are targeting. But there's an unintended consequence, in that they are impacting people who are also supposedly part of their own base. So you got to be careful when you're doing ugly. When you're acting ugly, when you're doing things that are out of integrity, because you impact more than just the people you're trying to impact. We are all too connected for that. But people are showing up and saying, you know what, that's okay. You're not going to let me mail it in. You're going to mess with the post office. You're not going to let me trust that you're going to count it. I'm going to show up. We got people that are in their 90s, on walkers, in wheelchairs, showing up to vote. That's what I'm talking about. Whatever your political affiliation, don't let bad actors take away your vote. Show up and show out. And I am holding out hope that people are going to continue to do that. So, but here's some things I need you guys to pay attention to. One, naked ballots. What that is there are some places that if you have a mail-in ballot, there is the ballot, there is a privacy envelope, and then there's the mailing envelope. So there are three pieces. And what they are saying is that if you do not actually put your ballot into the privacy envelope and then put it in the mailing envelope, they're calling it a naked ballot, and they will not count it. So please read. I talk about that all the time. Please read. Please educate yourself. Please, please, please. Please, please read. I don't want your vote to get taken away from you or not counted simply because you weren't paying attention. That's the first thing. The second thing is, there is lots of litigation going on right now, and especially in, I think it was either Florida or Alabama or both. They changed the rules about how you could do mail-in ballots and getting absentee ballots and requesting them. They sent out the set of rules to people in the mail. This is how you need to fill it out. There was litigation, and they reversed the rules. What they did not do is go back and tell people what needed to be done differently. And now there's argument about ensuring that people who followed the rules in the first place get an opportunity to rectify or remedy whatever error there is in their vote so their vote can be counted. That is still up in the air. So if you are in one of those states, I believe it was Florida and Alabama, double check me, y'all, because you know how I feel about truth telling and spreading rumors. Double check your state, because it's important for you to understand if you are one of the ones where some of the initial rules were wrong. Go find out what the new rules are and make sure that you request to fix your ballot. Okay, especially if you cast it early. So make sure you're not getting caught up in some of those rule changes that may, in fact, keep your vote from being counted. So that's number 2 or number 3. It may have been number 2. I don't know. Okay. The other thing is, in today's episode of Don't Believe the Hype, there are some letters that are going out, and I have actually double checked this. I have seen some of the letters. I actually went online, checked multiple news sources. There are some letters that are going out from individual landlords, individuals, to their tenants saying, if you vote for Harris and Biden, we're going to raise your rent by double. If you don't, then we won't raise your rent. And so people are scared. This is about fear, y'all. Here's the thing for you to know. Educate yourself. I know it's scary because some of y'all are living paycheck to paycheck. Many of us are living paycheck to paycheck. You're barely paying the rent now. We got this COVID thing going on. Now they're telling you if you vote a certain way, they're going to raise the rent. Here's the deal. They will never know how you voted unless you tell them. That's number 1. Your vote is secret. It is private. They are not going to know. They're not going to know unless you tell them. Number 2, make sure you are checking with your agencies in your state. If you're getting some of these threats from landlords, make sure you are checking with the agencies and the laws in your states, because most states have rules around how much rent can be raised in any period of time. So it is likely that you're living in a place where it is illegal for them to just double your rent. So don't automatically panic and believe all that stuff. I was about to say an ugly word. Don't automatically believe that stuff. Protect yourself. And again, this is not a time to be ashamed if you don't know somebody, if you're having trouble comprehending. Find somebody that you trust that can work it out for you. Okay? So that's happening. The other thing that is happening that we need to pay attention to, again, in that don't believe the hype, but keep your eyes open, because there's so much noise, some of the stuff that's important is sliding under the radar. There's an executive order that is right now being reviewed. This executive order would potentially change the status of some civil servant jobs. Now that sounds like it doesn't matter, but it does. Essentially, it would enable whatever sitting executive to be able to hire or fire for any reason. It eliminates some protections. Now, we'll talk about that in a minute, because some of that gets to unions and stuff, which I probably have a very unpopular opinion on that. But it takes away some worker protections. But it also takes away the ability to ensure that people who are in some of those positions, like the highest scientists, security, all those kind of stuff, are not some way loyalists to whoever's in the office, because those particular positions need to be able to operate freely and speak the truth, i.e. Fauci, which is probably one of the reasons why this is happening. So that executive order is in preliminary review right now. Pay attention. Call your representatives. Blow their phones up. Call them. Because now many of them are concerned, because they've now done this thing that we're going to talk about in a minute, because it goes to character and qualifications and truth and integrity and all these other things. Make sure you're calling people and letting them know how you feel about that. Okay? So an executive order is happening. Again, I did double check that. Make sure you're doing the same thing. The other thing that happened that came out in one of the debates. So the commercials have, they are on steroids now. And I was listening to Here and Now, I think yesterday, and they were actually not talking about the U.S., they were talking about the Netherlands. And there was a referendum in the Netherlands, and the referendum actually did not pass, and it was about the Netherlands and their interaction with the EU. And what happened is, there are people that were hired to put together the position and the narrative for and against. Well, inserted in that were these bad actors from Russia, in this case happened to be Russia, who were targeting people and telling them that if you agree to this, you're going to have all of these Ukrainians who are going to invade the Netherlands. If you agree to this, then these Ukrainians are going to, that the people in Ukraine are not backing this. I mean, all of this stuff that was false, actually. The entire propaganda campaign was based on lies. Now, here's the point of that and how it relates to us and how it relates to leadership and how it transitions into what we're going to talk about today. There is a question around a democracy and the ability to maintain freedom of speech and to say what you believe. First Amendment rights, right? And we all have those. And there is a duty to call out the truth. And so what's happening now in democracies is this question of, wait a minute, when things are out and out lies and they are targeted, we're not talking about just picking the pieces of the conversation, real words that happen and just taking things out of context. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about blatant misinformation. What is the responsibility in a democracy to call it out, to stop it, all those kind of things? Because especially in this era of social media, things move like wildfire. And even if they're debunked later, they've already impacted hundreds of millions of people, right? And so the same thing happened in the Netherlands. Again, this thing did not pass. And when they went back and looked at everything that was going on, all of this information it was lies. It just wasn't true. There were people who were hired to pretend to be Ukrainians who were standing at these meetings saying, this is not what we want. We can't believe you guys are doing this. And they weren't Ukrainian. They had no skin in the game other than somebody was paying them to act. So I only give you that to say, now more than ever, it is critical that you educate yourself and you pay attention. Mm-hmm. And you pay attention to the sources where you are getting your information. That you understand what is the position of the person who is giving you the information. I tell people in business all the time, and leaders this all the time, and individuals who are like, I don't understand, all the time. When someone is having a conversation with you about your performance or about a project or about whatever, and they're telling you, well, so-and-so didn't do this right, or this is what you should be doing, or what have you, the first thing you need to ask is, what's in it for them? What is their position? Because often the messages that are sent have nothing to do with you, but rather the position or the perspective of the person who is delivering the message. And what is their skin in the game? If their skin in the game is just to protect them, then the information that you are getting may or may not be full information, may or may not be accurate, because the point is for them to protect them. So you need to be discerning about who you're getting your information from and what is their motive. What's their motive? What's their motivation? What's their reason for even having the conversation with you? Because that will drive your understanding of not only what the message is, but why they're giving it to you and whether or not you can trust it. Which leads us to where we are today. And I really had to talk to myself about this, and I really had to pray on this, because I am pretty adamant that, what we talk about here on the Rutledge Perspective is truly about perspective. And yes, I have opinions. Absolutely, I have opinions. And you guys have heard my opinions. And I'm also one of those people, if there's anything about me, it is absolutely critical to me that I do everything in my power to get full information before I make a decision, as much as possible. And that I am responsible for owning my opinion when that opinion is contrary to facts. Because there's some stuff that I just believe in. I'll give you an example. That's a silly example, but it brings it to light. So I was having a conversation with someone about timeshares. And I'm like, I absolutely do not want timeshares. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. Never doing a timeshare. Not doing that. Crooked. Not doing it. And the person looked at me and said, have you ever had a timeshare? I'm like, nope, but I'm not doing it. And it was like, well, why? I said, because, my cousin did one and it was off. And they're like, okay, so you've never done it. Which one was it? Because not all of them are created equal. I mean, all this stuff that was absolutely reasonable and logical. And I was locked in. And I said, you know what? I've heard everything you said. I actually agree with everything you said. And I'm sticking to my opinion. I don't want a timeshare, ever. I don't trust them, right? So I give you that to say, get as much information as you can, but even when the information that you get is contrary to your opinion, just own that. So I own that how I feel about timeshares may be completely illogical, because they've been around long enough now that there's probably enough monitoring and regulation, and there's been enough litigation that they're probably not as bad as they used to be, right? When you'd show up and to whatever resort it was, and what they were really selling was a timeshare, and like, if you show up and just come to this meeting, you get a big screen TV, and what it really was like this little projector in a box or something. Right. It wasn't real. But I own the fact that it wasn't logical. It wasn't necessarily based in fact, but it was how I felt. But I was willing to own up to that. So here's what is the problem now and how it relates to business. And I just said, good morning, California. Good morning, Houston. Encourage everyone to watch The Social Dilemma on Netflix. I haven't watched it yet. I'm a little worried to watch it. I got to get my mind in the right place to watch it. Because it's about how no matter what you click on, that's what you continue to see, how it feeds you. It's an AI kind of thing. The Social Dilemma on Netflix. I do recommend watching it. What I've seen about it and the trailers I've seen and all that, I think it's a really good watch. I just know that I have to have my mind in the right place to do it. So what we saw with this confirmation of this person last night that just kind of threw me into apoplexy is a continuation of an acceptance of mediocrity. This person is not qualified to sit on the highest court in the land. Not qualified. This is a job interview. The person is not qualified. This is not about gender. This is not about race. This is about qualifications. And if you look at the majority of the appointments that have happened in the last 4 years, a large percentage of them have been deemed unqualified by the American Bar Association. So what are we saying? What are we saying? And here's how that translates into character and integrity. What we are seeing play out, that is what we also see in corporate America, although I have to say I'm starting to see more and more CEOs and more organizations say, yeah, we're not doing this, because ultimately we know what the impact is going to be on us long term. What we're seeing play out is an absolute refusal to play by the rules, because there is an understanding that if you play by the rules, you're not going to get what you want. And so instead of upping your argument, you manipulate the rules. Instead of strengthening your position, you cheat. Instead of gathering support and garnering people on your side, you push through something that is ultimately, you think, going to get what you want, because damn the consequences. And here's the problem with that. The problem with that is unintended consequences, because now we've got a prime example in the highest court of land of tokenism. Because tokenism doesn't have to be related to race. Yes, you just appointed another woman to the Supreme Court who is not qualified. And no qualified woman, no qualified insert other here, wants to have you hire somebody who's unqualified, because then you get a chance to say, see, we tried. And that's a lie. You didn't try. You went the easy way. You decided someone was less of a problem. It was going to be an easy hire. It was going to be an easy decision. You didn't have to work for it. You didn't have to think. Or you intentionally made a decision that you knew was going to get you in the short term what you wanted, and you are not caring at all about unintended consequences and the bigger impact. And that to me is absolutely unconscionable. Absolutely unconscionable. And here's how it translates into business. Yeah, Leela's saying 6,000 attorneys opposed the candidate. Agreed. Here's what happens in business and why you got to speak truth to power. Because if you are showing up every day and you're saying, we care about our people, You're saying we want to train our folks. We're saying we want everybody to have a seat. We're saying we want innovation. We're saying we want people to be a part of the solution. We know in order for us to grow, we got to have people invested. We got to train them. And yet, the first thing you do is cut training. Mm-hmm. The next time you hire somebody, instead of asking, why do you want this candidate instead of that candidate, you just pick the person that's easier to pick. The first thing you do is cut benefits instead of going and doing the hard work to understand how you can manage something different. And I've done that. There is a way to manage your money without impacting your people. And when we execute in a way that is contrary to character and out of integrity, what we do is we take bailouts and we pay shareholders instead of investing it back in the company. That's what we do. And we tell people we didn't, because we believe and we act as if people are stupid. Mm-hmm. We act as if people aren't going to understand what we're doing. And because we've gone through periods of time where people are so fearful of not having a job, they're so fearful of getting fired, they're so fearful of some of these cultures that are toxic, that no one is speaking truth to power. But karma is a nasty so-and-so. And what you see is what happened after the crazy recession in 2007. When the banks went down because of bad practices, by the way, because see, it always comes back to bite you. It always, good morning, Odessa. It always comes back to bite you. So what's done in the dark always comes to the light, y'all. So you can pretend that nobody's going to see it, but it will happen. It always comes to the light. So what you saw after 2007, when so many people were laid off and then had to go try to find jobs, and people who were looking to hire them were saying things like, well, but you've been out of work. We only want to hire people who are working. Really? You only want to hire people who are working. Do you know how many people are not working? Not of their own choice, right? And so then the people that did stay at the companies were way overworked. They were mistreated because organizations said, well, see, we can treat them any kind of way because they're only going to complain so much because we can fire them and they're afraid to lose their job. People remember how you treat them. So what did you see when the economy started picking up? You saw all kinds of turnover because people were like, no, see, now I know who you are. Now I know how you're going to behave in times of crisis. And I don't have to stay because I have a choice. And we always have choices, y'all. We always have choices. We have choices in how we show up. We have choices in how we're going to be operating in integrity. We have choices about how we talk to people and how we treat people. And we have choices about when we want to stay and when we want to go. We are not free from the consequences of our choices, but we have a choice. We have a choice in how to respond, just like I have a choice about whether or not I was going to show up as fired up as I feel. And I decided today I'm showing up as fired up as I feel. Some days I can manage it a little bit better. Let me rephrase that. Some days I choose to manage it a little bit better. Today I'm choosing not to. Although I am managing my words very well, I might add, because there are different words going through my head, y'all, at this moment. But I'm trying to be nice because I love y'all. And I'm happy to be here. Mm-hmm. So when you think about how you're showing up and how you're talking to people and how you are managing, your actions belie your character. So you can say all the stuff you want about how this is what the country wanted. This is what the company wanted. This is how the person is qualified. But nobody is stupid. We can be intellectually lazy, but we're not stupid. And it doesn't take much in this day and age to fact check somebody. It just doesn't. That's why you see now after every speech, after every debate, after every news story is fact checked. We have a news station here that has, what do they call it? Truth check. Our NBC station, right? KPRC, truth check. If you have anything that you're concerned about, send it to us. We'll truth check it. Everybody's checking the truth because you can no longer just trust what you read.
That's right.
You know, I look at journalism now, and I'm thinking about back to the days of real journalists, right? Real journalists. Dan Mather, Leslie Stahl, you know, people that were real journalists. There is so much pressure now on those who are truly wanting to get the information out. Good, bad, right, wrong, indifferent, whatever. And I don't mean, there've always been gossip rags. There've been gossip rags as long as people have been able to read. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about real journalism. And now what's happening is it is hard to know what's real and what's not. Mm-hmm. It is hard to know what's manipulated and what's not. But you can figure it out if you are willing to take the time to go do the research. Because there's also never been a better time when you can find out. So when you are showing up for your business, for your team, for your career, and you look in the mirror, are you the person you tell everybody you are? And I'm not talking about imposter syndrome. I'm not talking about how sometimes you have to leave some stuff at home, right? You leave the backyard barbecue at home and you bring your professional self to work. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about real integrity and your soul integrity. I'm talking about your real character, the way you act when nobody's looking. The kind of conversations you have when there's nothing in it for you. That's what I'm talking about. And what we are seeing is a display of a complete lack of integrity. A real sense of character flaws. And if nothing else, this is a study in how not to behave. And that's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing because I refuse to stand in irritation and frustration. Well, right now I'm in irritation and frustration, but I refuse to stay here because see, that's just draining. That's the reason I left corporate. It is hard work to stay irritated. It takes a lot of energy to stay irritated. And we don't have to. We don't have to. We can do something different. We can decide to act. And as I posted this morning, character is a display of the actions you choose to take. So if you are choosing to remain silent when a lot of stuff is going on, that says a lot about you, not about what's happening. If you are choosing to support that leader who always talks to people out of order, who always manipulates the numbers in the budget, who doesn't know how to manage individually but thinks that consistency is treating everybody the same. If you are continuing to support that says more about you than it does about the situation or about the other person. And if you're okay with that, okay. Because again, I'm all about you do you, own you, but don't be surprised when someone calls you on it. Don't be surprised when the outcome you wanted is not the outcome you get. Don't be surprised when you begin to get that lack of trust and people begin to operate differently than you expect because they now know who you are. People will tell you who they are early. Believe them. All you have to do is listen. All you have to do is watch. And that's listening with your ears, your eyes, your heart, your mind. Listening actively to what people say and what they don't say. Listening to what they do and what they don't do. And how those things connect or disconnect. And being adamant about qualifications. You don't just go to any doctor to have surgery. Are you going to go down the street to the person who said, well, yeah, I had, high school biology. I can do your amputation. Really? That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about qualifications, y'all. It's not personal. It's business. You're either qualified or you're not. Mm-hmm. It's pretty simple. You're either qualified or you're not. Now, that's not to say we can't learn. And that's not to say that people go into positions that are stretch positions. And we absolutely need that. Because how are you going to learn if you don't try? How are you going to get there if you're never given the opportunity? That is a true fact. And there are some positions where you need at least a minimum level of qualifications so that you don't really jack something up. And if you have never tried a case, that's a problem. If the first case you tried is on the Supreme Court.
Wow.
But you've been a professor for 15 years. So I guess in some cases maybe that makes up for actual experience. I don't know.
It was said by a reporter last night that let's be serious, who in their right mind would turn down the offer to be a judge on the Supreme Court? And they were like, they didn't figure out why she couldn't turn it down. But that's when integrity is called to the table for real.
Yes.
Because you just said there was no qualifications for that. There have been job opportunities that I have been asked to be because of who I am, but I knew I didn't have the qualifications for that. And before I make a fool out of me or you,
right,
I will say, listen, I know nothing about that area.
Let's be clear. Right.
But if you still want me and can train me, then let's do that.
Absolutely.
She did none of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, you know, and again, this is about character.
Yeah.
This is about character and integrity, because here's the thing. If it's meant for you, it will be for you. So if it was truly meant for her, it would be there in 4 years or 2 years or 6 months or whatever. And if you truly believed in your candidacy, you'd be willing to be up against everybody else because you know you got what it takes. That's not what happened here. That is not what happened here. And so are you willing to stand up and stand your character, stand your skills, stand your integrity, stand your ability up against anybody else? And there are many cases where I'm like, you know what? I'll put me up against anybody. There are other places where I'm like, yeah, well, no. I'm smart enough that I know I can figure it out, but yeah, it's going to take me a minute. But I'm honest enough with myself first to know that. And then I have enough humility and courage to say that. And here's the thing for women, which makes this even more maddening. Here's the thing for women that I coach women all the time. When you're looking at a promotion, when you're looking at being the next executive, you don't have to have stereotypical male characteristics to be successful. You don't. And many women, I came out of manufacturing, many women in manufacturing who start to climb up the ladder end up being can be very brash, very harsh, very, just very, I don't want to say manly because that's not what it is, but just really
aggressive.
Aggressive, but it's just not becoming. And it's because they feel like they have to be heard, because they're in these really heavy, male-dominated, uncouth, brash situations. And I get wanting to make sure you're being heard and wanting to make sure you're being taken seriously. But when you have to come out of your character to do so, you got some things to think about. And I would argue that the more you are and the more consistently you show up as you, that's what builds the most integrity and trust and respect. Not morphing your character and the way you talk to people and the way you interact with people to fit the situation, but always remaining who you are, and then maybe adjusting or flexing so that what you're trying to do is heard. And that's different than changing who you are to fit in. Adaptability is different than change. Adaptability is different than change. I am adapting to the situation. I am morphing, manipulating, managing, massaging how I show up, the words I use, etc., so that I can ensure the message is gotten across. But I'm not changing my message. I'm not changing who I am. I'm just understanding and knowing my audience and knowing my situation so that I can use that to my advantage to ensure that I am heard. That is different. And so when you are having an opportunity, and women have a tendency in these opportunities sometimes to say, well, I haven't done this, I haven't done this, I haven't done this, I haven't done this, but I've done these things, so I don't know if I should even apply. Most women, clearly not all. And I tell them all the time, look at transferable skills, because there are things you have done that apply to those things that they're looking for. But you have to make that connection for them, because they're not going to do it. Again, we're all moving really fast, and many of us are just intellectually lazy. There's too much stuff to do. We don't have time to do everything. So sometimes you need to do the work for somebody, right? But that also means in doing that, in being honest with yourself and giving yourself some credit for what you can do and how you can do it and the skills and experience that you have, and owning that and being proud of that and speaking into that, you also need to know what you really cannot do and what you really cannot impact, because we've got someone who spent her entire career and who made an impact on the very lives of women in business, of women in entrepreneurship, of healthcare rights of women. I mean, this RBG, the impact will be felt for decades. But she worked her butt off to get there. And she paid attention, and she put in the time, and she put in the hours, and she garnered the experience. And she fought the battles. She fought the battles. Now, I am not claiming that this woman has never fought any battles, because she is a woman and she's in the legal profession. So she's fought some battles. So I will give her credit for that. I don't know what battle she fought, but I'm sure she fought some, because we've all been there. But qualifications matter. Qualifications matter. So if there's something that you want to do as a business owner, as a leader, as an individual contributor in your career, what are you doing to ensure that you have the skills, that you have the capabilities, that you have the intellect, that you are working to get there? What are you doing? What are you doing to give someone the opportunity to choose you, or to force them to understand that they made the wrong choice? What are you doing to make them have to deselect you as opposed to having to select you, right? I'd rather someone have to make a conscious decision not to choose me than someone have to decide and push to choose me. Does that make sense? You want to be so good at what you do. You want to be so unquestionable in your skill and your capability and your fit that someone has to make a conscious decision to say, yeah, you know what, she's not the right one. And when you ask why, they can't come up with anything except that I just didn't like her, or I just didn't want her. Or, which is really what happens most of the time, there was this other candidate I really wanted. Just speak it. Just speak it and own it. Because it's okay. That's your choice. But you are not free from the consequences of your choices. And as leaders, it is important that we understand that. It is important that we understand how we're showing up. It is important that we connect our actions to our words. That's what integrity means. That's how you build trust. That consistency, that people understand how you're going to show up all the time. First, that you are going to show up, number one. And that when you show up, they know how you're going to show up. They know what you're going to say. They know if they don't understand and they ask, you're going to tell them. I tell people all the time, you can ask me any question. Absolutely any question. If it's about an individual, I'm not going to tell you that. This is when I was in HR. I'm not going to give you information about an individual situation, because that's private information. Just like you wouldn't want me to be sharing yours, I'm not going to share theirs. If there's something that I don't know, I'll tell you that I don't know, and I'll find out the answer. If it's something that I cannot tell you, I'll tell you. I can't tell you, and I'll tell you why. But nothing is off the table, as long as it's not ugly. Nothing. So when I was going to talk to people, and when people had asked questions to me, not only did I say that, but that's the way I acted. Whether I was standing up in front of the entire company, having to talk about how our ADP people just completely fell down on us, and we had to go back and figure out how to make sure people got paid. And I am running HR, so that's all on me. That's all on me. Not on my team, that's on me. And having to stand up in front of people and say, we own that, and here's what we did. And by the way, here's what we're doing with our vendor, because that's unacceptable. Because I don't mind paying for services, y'all. I really don't, but I want what I paid for. I want what I paid for. I don't need extra. I don't need all bells and whistles. I just want what I paid for. So people knew how I was going to come to them all the time. And when I had those moments like I had last night where I just was not able to manage that my words were what I really wanted my words to be, then I told people that too. I'm like, look, y'all, this is one of those days. I am fighting fires on every front. Some of them are fires that need to be fought. Some of them are just stupid, and I'm frustrated. So please know that I'm not irritated or frustrated with you. There's a bunch of other stuff going on. So if I'm not as patient today, I just want you to understand why, so that you're not thinking that things are all off. So you just tell people. You just tell people. Because what happens, because we're human, if someone begins to act out of character, we immediately ask, what did we do? What's wrong? What happened? What's going on? So if you just have that conversation out at the beginning, you're done. And then keep it moving. But your character is supported or negated by your action. What truth are you telling people? By your actions. How are you showing up? What are you doing? Why are you doing it? And are you willing, when challenged, to still stand in that position? Because that's what happens too. Often, when people are doing things that are shady and they're called on it, then they can't stand in that position publicly. If it's that important to you, if it was that critical, if it was that right, then you should be able to stand in it publicly. You should be able to support it publicly. You shouldn't have to figure out how to manipulate other things so that when challenged, you don't fail. Because that in and of itself tells you were doing wrong. Just saying. So I want all of you, even as irritated as I am and still fired up as I am, I'm going to be fired up for a while. Here's the other piece of this news. I truly believe, with everything in my being, that there is more good than there is bad. There are more people doing right than there are people doing wrong. That even when we are on different sides of issues, and I don't mean just political issues, I mean business issues, I mean career issues, when somebody's telling you should be an accountant and you really want to be an artist, when we are in different sides of things, there is a way to have those conversations that maintain respect and dignity, right? And I am still hopeful and still encouraged as I see more and more people saying, you know what, this just isn't the way we want to live. This isn't the way we operate. This isn't the way we engage. Now, because of the way media is, and because the more sensational a story is, the more likes you get, right? The more publicity you get. We are seeing the extremes. That's how that works. We're seeing the extremes. We are seeing the folks on both ends that are just, I was about to say another bad word, that are just nuts. Let's put it that way. We're seeing all that. They're the loudest. And they're never going to agree, y'all. Never, ever, ever, ever. They're just not going to agree. But I am really encouraged by seeing all these people that are kind of in the middle, right? All these moderate people who are saying, yeah, no, that's not okay. And what I'm most encouraged about is that people are not just saying that, they are putting it into action. They are supporting it with their feet and they're supporting it with their vote. And they're being intentional about how they respond. For example, this executive order that came out that said any federal contractor no longer can you do any kind of diversity training because it's propaganda and it's racist and it's reverse racism, blah, 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 insert BS answer here. And companies, though, are coming out and saying, wait, that makes no sense. That makes no sense. We're not going to do that. We're going to keep doing what we're doing to make sure that we continue to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion in our organizations because we know the power and the value of diverse workforce. And not only just diversity in race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, religious identity, all that kind of stuff, all the protected class stuff. But we know that diversity of thought, that diversity of experience, that diversity of perspective serves to move us all forward. And so I'm encouraged by the fact that reasonable people are saying, no. We're not going to go down that road. We're just not going to go down that road because we know that the other road is better. And that is encouraging because I like to live my life glass half full. And even though I'm fired up moving positive. We're going to keep moving forward. We are going to keep fighting the fight. And I am going to keep showing up and serving you guys and saying, you have a choice. Let's talk about what you want to do and how you want to show up and why you want what you want. So when you understand your why, you can pick a path of how to get there. Or you can understand when you need to stay still and be okay with staying still. Because ultimately you know where you're going to go and you can stand in that power. This is about power. This is about confidence. This is about connection.
Wasn't there someone who just quit because he wanted that bill passed that you're just speaking about?
Yeah.
And they just resigned from that. That is somebody using their power.
Using their power.
To make an intelligent decision and an integral decision.
Yes. Yeah.
And knows that whatever's for him is going to come for him for whatever reason. But and then I'm hearing you saying you're pissed off, you're mad, you're this. But there is a time we're supposed to be this fired up.
Absolutely.
Especially if it's able to help the situation. Now, if you just over here screaming and ranting and raving, there's nothing you can do about it. But we do have a choice in the matter. We can go vote.
Yes.
Because there's so many people that I still know who are still on the fence about what to do, saying that nothing is going to change. Well, it won't change
if you don't act.
Yeah.
Exactly, Jerry. And that's the thing that I think we have to stand in, because this is really heavy. We are in a very, very heavy time. We're in a heavy time. Not only are we coming into the end of the year, which is all dark and rainy and cold and all that stuff that just, for those of us with seasonal affective disorder, it's just awful. We're not seeing a lot of sun, literally and figuratively. So we're coming into that time of the year that's dark anyway. And then there's so much stuff that's going on that's just dark. Globally, that's just dark. And we're tired of being isolated, and we're tired of wearing these masks, although my mask today is kind of cute.
Yes, sir.
We're tired, we're tired. We're tired. Mm-hmm. And we're missing that human connection. I know I am. And that's why I'm going to go see my mama. We're missing that human connection. We're missing that person that is our rock. We're missing that person that is our peace. We're missing that person or those persons who are our folks that support us. And yes, Leela, Wisconsin. Oh, the Supreme Court in Wisconsin just really made a bad decision around absentee ballots. So, we have to stay strong, y'all. And that is easier said than done. People are tired. People are struggling. People are trying to figure out how to eat. They're trying to figure out how to put food on the table. I heard on the news the other day, when you look at what happened through this pandemic and the number of people who were either put out of work or chose to leave because of family situations. And I'm going to get these numbers wrong. I may have said it last week. There's 100 and something thousand men, I think, 800 and something thousand women now out of the workforce. That's going to have generational impact, you guys. And so what are we doing about that? How do we stay encouraged? How do we get innovative? And so those women who had to make a different decision, how do we reach them and find a way to put them to work and help them support their families when they have to be at home with maybe elder parent care and child care? Or how do we help women have a conversation with their spouse to say, wait a minute, why does it have to be me that stays home? Because I want to know how many couples are having that conversation. Right? Because childcare is a partnership, theoretically. It took two of you to make them. Mm. So I think it would take two of you to support them and raise them and care for them. And I'm not sitting in judgment. Y'all know me. I can't make a judgment, because who am I? How can I judge somebody when I got a stick in my own eye? Right? Mm. I'm just saying, as I say all the time, have the conversation. Ask the question. Don't assume that because everyone else is doing it one way, that's the way it's going to work for you, or that you have to do it too. It doesn't have to be that way. And there are options and there are choices, and ask for help. And if you have a way to help somebody, do so. I've seen a lot on LinkedIn where people will post, and I need to post it too. I have not done that. Where people are posting, hey, if you are struggling right now and you're looking for a job and there's any way I can help, please DM me. If you see somebody in my network, I'm more than happy to make an introduction, right? That kind of stuff. People are really reaching people, and that's what gives me courage. That's what gives me peace. That's what gives me hope, is that even in all this madness, we are still acting as humans, many of us, the majority of us. It's just the majority of us that are acting as humans aren't necessarily being vocal about it. We're just doing it. The left hand isn't letting the right hand know what they're doing. Because in being of service and in being human, it's not about you. It's about the person you're serving. And that doesn't need to be blasted from the mountaintops. Because if you're blasting it from the mountaintops, that's about you. That's about you. And so what can we do collectively to help honor each other and ensure we're taking care of each other? Ensure we're taking care of ourselves. Because I'm telling you, this last 2 months or so, I am making sure to feed me so that I can feed you guys and I can serve. And I realize that part of this darkness, Jerry and I have been talking about that. I'm like, it's just dark. And I realized, but I haven't been doing my stuff. I haven't been listening to the stuff that I need to feed me. You know, I was listening to my old classic radio, which I love, y'all. But I wasn't listening to my podcast. I wasn't listening to NPR. I wasn't listening to CNN. I wasn't reading the books I need to read. I wasn't doing the stuff that gets my mind going and gets my creativity going, so that then I could be creative and push you guys forward who I want to serve. So I'm doing that in these last 2 months. I'm getting back to me. I'm spending time with my family. I'm continuing to work on my business, and I'm continuing to develop things that give me an opportunity to serve you bigger and broader and better.
You always say it's not unkind to be clear.
Yes.
And it's not unkind to take care of you, especially when
It is
you
not.
have so many others to take care of.
Yes.
It was a meme on Facebook, please do not disturb my peace if you're at war with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I quoted, I said, this is the reason why I can stare at a ringing phone.
Yeah.
If I know that this is going to be a problem, I am not answering that phone. I have literally taken this year off.
Yes.
Even though I'm coming here to work.
Right.
There's other things that are on hold to take care of me mentally.
Yes.
So I don't crack and I can function and do what I do as a minister. But as you said earlier, avoidance is not going to cause a problem to go away.
No.
Acting as if we're, in his terms, rounding the corner.
Yeah.
There's no corner to be rounded.
Not yet.
And sometimes when you say actions speak louder than words, non-actions and non-speaking says a lot.
It does.
And I think that some of us are in this dream world, like, it's just going to get better. No.
It'll get better. It'll be over soon. And I'm telling you, not acting is a choice.
Yeah.
Not making a decision is a decision. Not engaging is a decision. And you can't get mad if you don't do nothing. Well, you can, but I'm not hearing that.
It's something you have to do, because when I think about the affordable health care, back in the day, most people would say, well, that's for the poor. I can't worry about it. I've got insurance. Do you know how many people are on affordable health care?
Right.
I'm in the entertainment world, so the affordable health care is good for me.
Exactly.
And for those that are may not work a 9 to 5, so to speak, that's a good insurance for them.
Right.
But this is now being said it can be stripped away. You have nothing to replace it with.
Right.
He passed on 60 Minutes the book.
That wasn't a book.
Of executive order. And when you talk about leadership, as this show talks about, you have to be able to answer the hard questions.
Yes.
And can't assume they're beating up on you because you got to answer the hard questions. And I don't think that any of us as a people, we've got to be able to answer the hard questions. Is this really the way America is supposed to look right now?
Right.
And as you said, that when I see you come in and we still do our shows and we still got to function, we're doing this in a heavy world. This world is heavy.
Absolutely.
Ministers need to be honest and say, this is heavy. This is a lot.
Heavy.
How do we get over this? And how do we get to the other side of this? And we can't hide from it because it's in our face right now.
And who is in your village? You guys know I did those 2 summits. And on the business side, I talk about who's on your team, right? Who are you putting around you? How do you know where you got to know where you're going so you can put the right people around you? It's the same thing when you're building a career. And as I was doing this for people yesterday, I'm like, there's a reason I call it a village and not a tribe, right? Because it takes a village. I love that African proverb. It takes a village to raise a child. Well, it takes a village. And so who is in your village? And if you surround yourself with people who are only going to tell you what you want to hear, if you surround yourself with people who are only going to lift you up and who are going to lie to you, because only telling you what you want to hear is lying. That's a lie. Then how can you get to where you really want to be? How do you continue to improve and to move forward if the only thing people are doing is telling you yes, telling you absolutely, telling you can do it? Because sometimes you need somebody to say, that's crazy. I need you to slow down and think about that. The parents who say, don't touch that, don't touch that, don't touch that, and you touch it anyway, instead of saying, oh, I'm so sorry, they say, I told you not to touch that. You need people in your circle who are going to say, okay, you know what? That meeting didn't go well. You know what? I know you really want to be CEO, but here are the things that you're going to need to do that. And I know you well enough to know that you're not willing to work that hard. So you might want to rethink. Love you, mean it. You might want to rethink that.
And oftentimes those people love people like that.
Yes.
I'm afraid to say something. I say this all the time about a church.
Yes.
Jen Hall said from day one he didn't like me. And I came here just doing 1 hour show, but ended up being the CEO of the radio station from a man who admitted, I didn't like you. And why didn't you like me? Because you spoke to me and you didn't let me just say what I wanted to say. Most people of authority don't like weak back people.
Yes.
That will let them do anything. And so that's your biggest fear, losing your job, could be the very thing that's going to pull you to the forefront and say, well, you know what? They're not afraid to speak up.
Exactly.
They've got the company's best interest at heart.
Yep.
So, and even that guy that walked away because he's not going to do what the president asked him to do, how many more need to follow that example?
I know. And there have been so many. And you know, that's what they say about fear, right? Forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. Those are two of the things. Face everything and rise, or forget everything and run. I choose to rise. And it is not easy. It is hard. And there's some days there's some days I do. I just go back to bed. This weekend, I did nothing but take care of me. I was tired, y'all. I did a little bit of running around because I had some things I need to pick up. But I just focused on me this weekend because I needed a minute. And I think, right? I will make my buckets run.
You heard that?
You know, I did hear that. You know, but it's funny. Again, we got to take care of ourselves, because as I think about how I'm going to make this drive, I'm like, man, I-10 is a mess. I don't want to go the back roads by myself anymore, just because folks are crazy right now. And I really don't want to be on those back roads by myself. So let me go 10. I'm like, well, but I could go up, I could go up to Dallas and go over. That takes a little bit longer. Ooh, but if I do that, I can't make my Buc-ee's run. And the Buc-ee's run is an important part of the drive home. I'm just saying, okay? Got to get my frozen Dr. Pepper. So anyway, as we wrap up, because am I over again? Almost. As we wrap up.
But wait, Laura, one point that I want to make. The lady, the one person who voted against the judge, there was 2.
Yeah.
One declined and changed her mind.
Yeah.
What about that person that is in a hard place and they had somebody else going along with them to make this stand? How do you stand when you're in that hard place? Because I'm sure that was a hard thing for her to still stand when who she thought she had one with her declined.
That's about courage. And it is not easy to stand alone. It is not easy to stand alone. It is not easy to speak your truth and stand in your truth, because, again, every choice has consequences. And while we are free to make the choices we make, we're not free from the consequences of that choice. And so if you are truly invested in your position, then you are willing to accept the consequences of that choice. And all I have to say is, which of those people showed the most courage? The one that stepped up or the one that stood down? I would argue it's the one that stepped up. Because, what is it? Those in the sight of hard times, if you are silent, you are standing on the side of the oppressor.
Say it again.
So I always get it wrong. It's the Desmond Tutu quote. So basically, if you are not willing to stand up, then your silence is supporting the oppressor. I'm gonna get it right, and I'm gonna post it today. I am encouraged. I am frustrated. A friend of mine just said, am I wrong on being stuck on the frozen Dr. Pepper?
Yes.
Absolutely.
About the pecan.
But I get it, right? Okay. Pecan brittle. I'm taking Becky's orders, y'all. But it's, I am encouraged. I am annoyed. I am deeply annoyed. And I'm frustrated because I have probably what is an unreasonable expectation for truth. Just tell the truth.
Me too.
Just tell the truth. Even if the truth does not support my argument, just tell the truth. Just stand in integrity. I have a value system that for me, you can do a lot of things to me, but lying is a problem. Lying is a problem. There it is. If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. Thank you so much.
I like that.
That's it. If you are neutral. So when you stand down or when you abstain, that's neutrality.
Who quoted that? Do you know?
Leela in California. That's Desmond Tutu.
Okay.
If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. In these times, you got to pick a side, y'all. You got to pick a side. Or the side will be chosen for you. So speak up. This is the time to speak up. And we don't have to agree. I will be the first to admit, I'm not a straight ticket girl. I'm not a straight ticket girl. I look at every single race. I go look at every single candidate. I want to understand your qualifications.
Me too.
And I want to understand your history before I make a decision. And that's the data upon which I make my decision. It is not because you got a D or an R, an I or an L. Because there's a lot of D's that don't speak for me.
That's true.
And there's a lot of I's and R's and L's that don't either. So I pick the people that speak to me and for me and have a position that is aligned with mine and have demonstrated value system. Notice I said demonstrated value system that aligns with mine. Even if I don't agree with all the decisions, if I can see a general pattern that is in agreement with mine, I'm good. But our very democracy is on the ballot this time, y'all. Over 60 million people have early voted. Thank you, Jesus. Over 60 million people have early voted. If you are in a state where they are challenging absentee votes, Wisconsin, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, I need you to get vocal. I need you to pay attention, and I need you to not let them steal your vote. I need you to say something. Stand up, speak truth to power, say something, make them, force them to go on record of stealing your vote. Force them to go on record, because that's the only way we're going to start to change things, because people do a lot of things in the dark. In this day and age, it's easier to get people and have things come to light. It's also easier to lie, so you need to check your facts. But force people to be vocal about the shady stuff they're doing.
You keep on the slip. You know, Lord, I like what you said earlier about fact checking, because I said that the other day on the air. I said I'm starting to fact check my own self.
Yeah, me too.
Because the day of journalism, the real day of real journalism, is really almost over.
Yes.
And not everybody is going to be telling the truth. So you need to. I don't care if it's your favorite news source.
Right.
I fact check every last one of them. And one thing that is interesting that I saw, and I will say this about Fox.
Yeah.
What I saw when it comes on the feed, if you're on Facebook, the people are so angry.
Yes.
They're commenting, they're saying ugly things.
Yes.
And you would think the whole world is like that if that's all you're watching.
Yes.
Then you see the other feed that comes from ABC News.
Yeah.
And you hear people talking totally different on a whole nother level of whatever they're talking about. But you have to check these sources.
Yes.
Because if you stick to only one source, you will be blinded, depressed,
oppressed. You will.
And worried.
You will.
Because it
and confused.
And confused. Because you're like, okay, is there really a pandemic?
Right. Well, and here's the thing, y'all. There was, I followed this group on Facebook, Blackout Week, and really supports black businesses, black-owned businesses, and supports the first 7 days of every month buy black, buy or not at all. And so there was a post that came out that was like, if y'all really believe that either one of these parties really supports us, but basically they were telling people, they were discouraging people to vote in this post. That it doesn't matter, it's not going to make a difference, blah, 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 blah. And I was encouraged because people's comments were like, don't believe that. That's another bot. We know that they are targeting us. That was the point of one of the things I was saying earlier about truth in a democracy. We know that communities of color are being targeted to be fearful of having a vote and telling that their vote didn't count and all of these kind of things. We know this, y'all. Unless you are under a rock, you know this. Don't believe everything that's posted.
Don't.
Your vote doesn't count, because here's the thing. Here's the truth. If your vote wasn't so important, why are they working so hard to take it from you? Because if it didn't matter, they wouldn't care. If it didn't matter, they wouldn't be trying to put one ballot drop-off box in a county of 4.7 million. If it didn't matter, they wouldn't be trying to figure out how to have 1,400 envelopes before your vote can count. And to check, the verify the signatures when, as you get older, your signature changes. They wouldn't be doing all that stuff.
And they wouldn't be trying to remind us that the numbers are going up with COVID after they didn't tell us anything for months about COVID in Texas.
They wouldn't be trying to do that.
Telling you to be careful about going out.
So if your vote wasn't important, they wouldn't work so hard to take it from you. Vote. And I saw a post the other day, and I'm going to leave it with this.
Go.
It is not, November 3rd is not the only day to vote. It is the last day to vote. Go out, vote. Some of your states you can register and vote on the same day. Go check that out. Go to a reputable source. When we all vote. Vote.org. Go to your elections officials. Go to official places and find out what you need to do. Now more than ever, it is time to do this. Whatever your position is, I don't even care at this point. I just need you to vote. I need you to vote because it is important. It is important.
One piece of advice too. We talked about this on the Ben Hall Legal Hour. This happened to me when I went to vote at Cypress Library on FM 1960. This guy came to just the black people and was telling us that this other place had no lines. Some people were getting out of line. I'm like, I'm not getting out of line. I don't care who's out of line. I'm in this line. I've been in this line. But Attorney Ben Hall was saying that's another form of voter suppression.
Yes.
They're trying to get people to get out of line. Do not, whatever you do,
don't get out of line.
So a lot of people were leaving.
Yes.
So don't do that.
Don't, and that's a good point because here's the thing. If you are in line when the polls close, they have to let you vote. That's why you see poll watchers coming out close to the end of voting time and seeing the end of the line. So if you are in line before the time ends, they have to let you vote, y'all. There also, look, Harris County has some places that are doing 24-hour voting, and I think they actually changed some and extended some hours. Check your city, check your state. Go vote. They're making, in so many ways, there are so many people trying to suppress it. The other side of that, y'all, is these elections officials, I have to give them credit. The majority of elections officials are just trying to make sure elections happen. And they are extending polling hours. They are doing drive-through voting. They are doing everything they can, y'all.
Rise to the polls.
Rise to the polls, stroll to the polls, walk to the polls, run to the polls. They are doing everything they can. So please, please, please vote. Vote. Vote, 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 vote. Can I say it again? Vote. See my pen? Vote. Vote. Okay. All right. It's been lovely, as always, to be with y'all. Love a Tuesday. Thank you for tuning in. Tell your friends. I'll be back next week. Next week is, oh Lord Jesus. Next week it's election day. We are 7 days away, y'all. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. See you next week.